Shalom. I'm Rabbi Diane Elliott, and I'd like to share with you an introduction to the very powerful practice of counting the Omer, a practice of counting the days and the weeks, 7 weeks in all, between the Passover holiday and the holiday of Shavuot, the early spring harvest holiday, the holiday of Passover that commemorates the Exodus, the season of liberation, the ancient Israelite people being released by the power of the divine from slavery in Egypt, and the 7 weeks that take us to the holiday of Shavuot, the late spring or early summer harvest holiday, the offering of the first fruits, which commemorates the receiving of Torah at Mount Sinai. Lizkor, zikaron, to remember, memory. What does it mean to remember? How do we remember? How does remembering influence our presence in the present time, the way we are living in the world in this moment? How is remembering, lizkor, different from returning, teshuvah? The scholar Yosef Chaim Yerushalmi writes in his beautiful monograph, Zachor, Memory, quote, if Herodotus was the father of history, then the fathers and mothers of meaning in history were the Jews, end quote. Beginning with the story of the Exodus, Yerushalmi writes, memory becomes crucial to Israel's faith. God, quote, remembers the people. At the burning bush, God paradoxically introduces God's self to Moses in two seemingly contradictory ways as, quote, the God of your ancestors, Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, and also as, quote, Ehyeh asher ehyeh, eternal becoming. Perhaps these two aspects of the divine are not in contradiction. Perhaps the God of our ancestors is not some fixed entity, but a God eternally in process, continually morphing in relationship with each succeeding generation and with each individual person, with each one of us. Yerushalmi writes that for the Jews, quote, memory flowed above all through two channels, ritual and recital, even while fully preserving their organic links to the natural cycles of the agricultural year. The great pilgrimage festivals of Passover and Shavuot and Tabernacles, Sukkot, were transformed into commemorations of the Exodus from Egypt and the sojourn in the wilderness. Post-biblical Judaism did not inherit a series of separate historical sources and documents, but rather what it regarded as a sacred and organic whole, end quote. Memory and presence. We step into the stream of memory, which becomes an undifferentiated flow of presence. Even though we stand downstream, we're ankle deep, knee deep, maybe chest deep in the same water that trickled from the river's source many eons ago. The stream has picked up rocks and soil, sticks and growing things along the way. It's been fed by other sources, tributaries, and yet it's the same water. V'nahar yotzei me'Eden, and a river flowed forth from Eden. The counting of the Omer, which begins in Torah as an agricultural ritual, a fertility rite, and a fervent prayer for the health of the crops, and therefore for the sustenance of the community, becomes something else, a repository of religious memory, a return to the source, the performance of which in some way carries us back to that source, even when the living waters are reduced to a trickle, even when we've forgotten that it's all the same water. In Parashat Emor, Leviticus chapter 23, as the people are still camped at the foot of Mount Sinai in the sacred mythic journey, all the major holy convocations of the year, Moedei Yud-He Vav-He, our appointments with God, are laid out, beginning with Pesach, moving through the counting of the Omer to Shavuot, from the spring harvest festivals through Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret, the fall harvest festivals. Here's what it says in the Torah. Vayidaber Yud-He Vav-He el Moshe lemor. Then the Infinite spoke through Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them that when you will come into the land that I am giving you and reap its harvest, you shall bring an Omer, a measure of your first harvest grain to the Kohen. He shall wave the Omer before Yud-He Vav-He to garner favor for you from the day after the rest day, that is, the Passover holiday, the Kohen shall wave it. On the day that you wave the Omer, you shall perform the service of an unblemished lamb in its first year as a burnt offering to Yud-He Vav-He. Its meal offering shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, a fire offering to Yud-He Vav-He, a pleasing aroma, and its libation shall be a 1/4 hin of wine. You shall not eat bread or roasted kernels or plump kernels until this very day, until you bring the offering of your God. It is an eternal decree for your generations in all your settlements. You shall count for yourselves from the day after the rest day, from the day you bring the Omer for waving, 7 complete, unblemished weeks. Sheva Shavuot Timimot. Until the day after the 7th week, you shall count 50 days, and then you shall offer up a new meal offering to Yud-He Vav-He. So again, Yerushalmi writes in Zachor, quote, Passover is preeminently the great historical festival of the Jewish people, and the Haggadah is its book of remembrance and redemption. Here, the memory of the nation is annually renewed and replenished, and the collective hope sustained, end quote. As we renew our collective memory and our collective hope over our Seder tables, time dissolves. We were slaves in Egypt. We are the ones mired in the misery of bondage. We are the ones who must grab our meager possessions on a moment's notice, our unleavened bread dough, and flee in the night. Yet, do we not also carry within us the Pharaoh, clinging to vestiges of an opulent and repressive lifestyle, and Pharaoh's courtiers, the oligarchs of that time, hanging on for dear life to what they own and imagine to be so important: material wealth, unearned privilege, and the illusion of power. The sages of old repurposed this ancient fertility rite of waving the Omer of grain and counting the days. They re-envisioned it as a historical journey from Egypt to Sinai, from bondage to an oppressive and misaligned system, to the freedom to serve aliveness, beingness, changingness, Yud-He Vav-He, the true animating power of the world. a journey from the dulled unconsciousness of servitude in Egypt to an awakened mind, a journey from redemption to revelation. The Kabbalists of the 16th century and the Hasidim and Neo-Hasidim, beginning with the Baal Shem Tov in the 18th century and continuing today, both in the traditional Hasidic world and the Jewish renewal movement, went farther. They lived these 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot as an inner soul journey, a refining of the self. Rabbi Yosef Y. Jacobson connects the 10 plagues of the Exodus story with the 10 Sefirot, the emanations of divine presence, first described in the ancient Jewish mystical book of formation, Sefer Yetzirah. Rabbi Jacobson describes the 10 Sefirot this way. The Kabbalah teaches that every human soul is comprised of 10 points of energy, 10 characteristics that make up its inner personality. The first 3 form the subconscious identity of the soul and its cognitive powers. The final 7 constitute the emotional persona of the soul. End quote. So these 10 emanations that source creation in the mind of the mystics, they're known as the 10 Sephirot, or lights, and they're associated in Kabbalah with 10 essential midot, or constellations of qualities that human beings need to develop within ourselves. The 10 Sephirot, these 10 constellations of qualities, begin with Keter, crown, the supraconscious, then Chokhmah, wisdom, intuition, the first flashes of conception, Bina, understanding, intelligence, the ability to sequence and communicate ideas, Chesed, love, expansive, unbounded, and all-encompassing, Gevurah, strength, boundary, limitation, the ability to set a limit and say no. Tiferet, beauty, harmony, compassion, and integration. Netzach, persistence, will, ambition, victory, endurance. Hod, splendor of surrender, the splendor of the variety of the natural world, and our bowing in humility before the ever unfolding flow of creation, sometimes even bowing in submission. Yesod, foundation, bonding, the vessel of life, and Malchut, sovereignty, presence, fullness of being, confidence, Shekhinah, divinity within all of materiality. Rabbi Jacobson teaches, quote, each of us is given a choice in life. We may either refine and repair these 10 attributes so that they express our inner divine light, or we may pervert and corrupt these very attributes by using them in unhealthy and immoral ways, end quote. The plagues represent the perversion of these attributes, the 10 plagues that were brought down upon Egypt that finally convinced the power, the holding on, grasping power to release the people into freedom, freedom to serve beingness. So the plagues represent the perversion of these attributes, which constitute the condition of enslavement, both inner and outer, for our rabbinic sages. The period of counting the Omer then becomes a practice period to refine the 7 so-called lower midot, the 7 midot associated with the emotional persona of the soul, and to rectify the damaging plagues within our psyches and restore the original divinity embedded in our very beings. In this way, we prepare to receive Torah on Shavuot, the harvest holiday that has come to represent, to be associated with Matan Torah, the receiving of Torah. And in refining these emotional qualities, soul qualities, we prepare ourselves to receive the true Torah, untainted by ambition, pride, jealousy, and separation. The Torah that each of our souls needs and calls into being in this very time, in this year. Each of the 7 Omer weeks is infused with one of these 7 midot, these 7 constellations of qualities. We begin with the week of Chesed, the week in which we are sitting at this very moment, in which I am sitting as I record this message. The week of Hesed, the outflow of giving, the offering of love without bounds or conditions, love as connection, love as magnetic attraction, love as unstinting presence, love as the eternal reach. And each of these 7 qualities, beginning with Chesed and flowing through Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut Shechina, each of the 7 is modulated, refined, and flavored day by day with each of the 7, including itself and the 6 others. So we might ask, how is love tempered and enriched by restraint? How is it sustained by balance, prolonged and heightened by endurance? How is love beautified by humility? How is it a spur to relationality and to creativity? And how is love made manifest in the full, miraculous array of this created world? Where will the magic carpet of Chesed take you this year? How will it carry you beyond the mundane into the caverns of night and the brightness of morning? How will it absorb every tear and sing you into wholeness? May this week and each week between Passover and Shavuot bring you the blessing of tikkun, of repair, of a deep soul repair. And may the tikkun that each one of us makes with our intentionality, our kavanah, our focusing on the rectification and the expansion of these flavors of divine presence within ourselves. How will we bring this into our world so in need of healing and repair, of justice and of love? Blessings, blessings for your practice.